Hi, I'm Nicole Shore, and today I'm going to talk to you about the science of reading. The term science of reading is a systematic with explicit phonics instructions and is very necessary for the foundation of learning to read and growing from there. This helps with people to learn how to read, whether they read well or if they have difficulty. And they call the 5 instructional methods, the big 5, phonemic awareness, phonics, vocabulary, comprehension, and fluency. Phonemic awareness is understanding and using sounds to make words and syllables. Some examples that I've listed here are identifying and working with syllable spoken words. With that, you can tap, clap, or put your hand under each syllable. So, like if you're saying houseboat, you can go house boat, or you can tap house boat, or you can clap house boat. The second example that I have is phoneme isolation, and this is recognizing the individual sounds in a word. So that would be like saying, giving a child or student the word rat and asking them what the first sound in rat is. And the first sound in rat is er. And then phoneme categorization. And that's recognizing the words that they have different sounds in a group of 3 or 4 words. So if I gave an example to a child, or example of this for a child is asking them which word does not belong because by sound: boy, bat, or tot. And tot would be the answer because it doesn't belong with the t sound. Boy and bat start with the same sound. The next one is phonics. And the examples I have for this is the C rule. And the rule is when C comes directly before E, I, or Y, you use the S sound. In other cases, you use the K sound. And at our school, we use the song, when C is followed by E, I, or Y, it always says. The next example I have is the Cvc pattern. When a vowel comes between 2 consonants in a syllable, it usually represents what is referred to as a short vowel sound. So some examples for CVC words would be rat, fan, pet, pan, and wig. And the last example I have is onset and rhyme. Onset is the part of a syllable that comes before the vowel. The rhyme is the rest of the syllable. And for this one, I would use word games, word family games. And the one that I thought of was you could team up kids in pairs or different groups, depending how many kids you have in your class. And then on the board, you would write like group 1 has a word family of ALL, group 2 ILL, a group 3 AT, and group 4 EAT. So then they would all get a dry erase marker, and the group would come up with as many words as they could in that word family. They could use a single letter or they could use multiple letters to make the words. And it would be kind of a race to see and working together, trying to find the word families, which would be the onset and rhyme example. Vocabulary is what a word means. Vocabulary is different for each person. Most vocabulary is learned from conversations and different kinds of media. The examples that I have that you can do for helping with vocabulary would be learn new words and their definitions from the ELA material. So the current one that our school is using is has a list of 6 to 8 words each story week. And so the book has them listed out with pictures. They're in the back of the book in the glossary. In the story, they have the words highlighted. The teachers have other resources too. They have like little cards with the picture on the outside of it. That's actually in their textbook also. And it tells you what the definition of a word is, examples of the word, and kind of like conversation starters if you wanted to have like shoulder partners or table partners, discuss it together and then discuss it as a class. And there's online feature that you can show. It shows pictures and some videos to go through the vocabulary. And then, of course, some workbook pages if there's a lot of stuff, but there's plenty in there to use for that. The second thing I picked was Pictionary. Pictionary, you would put kids into groups or a pair, and you could play Pictionary against each other or, against the whole class. Um, I think that this would have to not only be the words that you had for that week, but also mix in some words from past weeks too. So that way there's some, it's not so obvious it's going to only be these 6 or 8 words, that they would have the examples of the other vocabularies from, lessons before that too. And the last one is teacher read aloud. Reading a book to the students that is above the class level is a good idea, and discussing the book and the words in the book as you go. I think even showing the book while you're reading it, whether it's on the overhead or if you have an ebook, you can put it up on the board or whiteboard or whatever it is that you have in your classroom. And for them to hear uh, different vocabulary than what's in their book as something fun to talk about too is a good example. The next is comprehension. Comprehension is the true understanding of text being read. Comprehension consists of 4 parts. The 4 parts are the reader, the text, the purpose for reading, the atmosphere of the reading zone. This consists of where it is, who is around, is the place or the people that make you feel comfortable, or do you have anxiety, worry, concern, or self-conscious stuff going on. So the first example I have for comprehension is a story map. A story map is something that you can make up yourself, or you can find it uh, on Teachers Pay Teachers or anywhere online for free. I found one online, and it would just map out depending on what grade level it is and how detailed it is about like the plot, the characters, um, and all those things. The second would be a text feature chart. Using a text feature chart would be a good example and good hands-on on taking a page from a book and having them label each part. So it would be a good one to have different text features in there and possible features that they could be learning about or graphing out. Well, not graphing out, but labeling on the example could be the title, a table of contents, index, glossary, heading, subtitles, sidebar, pictures or captions, labeled diagrams, graphs or charts, maps, cutaways, inserts, and photos, or inset photos. And then the last example is retelling of the text. This could be in a form in front of the whole class. This could be in a form just between the teacher and the student. This could also be of time that if it's a child that is having difficulty retelling the text or understanding how to do it, they could look at their story map or for clues, or you could help scaffold them by the questions that you kind of lead them in the right direction. And the next is fluency, which she's not for that kid over there is not very fluent, but I just thought it was funny. So fluency is while they're reading a book or a passage that they are reading with speed, accuracy, and proper expression. This comes with a lot of support and practice, and I think once the other things that we already talked about are they're higher on that, fluency will become easier. Fluency is a good thing to start talking about, even if they're not reading well. So that way they have it in their mind what their goal is to eventually um, be at. Some examples are be an example, reading to the class, like reading a book or stuff from their studies out loud and showing them, and you can explain while you're doing it or before and after so they can see, or just doing it and showing as an example is huge for children. Ebooks. There are ebooks online. There's tons of them, especially after COVID and stuff with online stuff. Um, they can use things like there's a website called epic.com. It has a whole online library. It has popular books. The teacher can use it in the classroom instead of having physical books in their hands. And they also have books that read to you. And so it shows each word that they're reading as they read it along with it, so they can see the word as it's going through the book, and they actually get to listen to the story, even though they may have a harder time understanding it. And or like audio books too. Um, Reader theater scripts is another example, and this is a place that children can show more expression. They're acting out the part. They may not have to necessarily memorize it, but if they can read it fluently, it will come out right. But if they are reading like iRobot, they can see that they're not reading it right to become more fluent. The 5 block reading essential model is a combination of all the things that we just talked about. Writing for 30 minutes, fluency for 30 minutes, comprehension for 30 minutes, word work for 30 minutes, and small group differentiated reading instruction and practice for 60 minutes. And if it was for kindergarten, it would be half this time. Writing is for 30 minutes. It is whole class instruction time. There's time to show and explain to the students how to write letters, words, sentences, and paragraphs. Writing is also a time to discuss difference of writing like poetry, informational, or persuasive writing. And students can work on all kinds of different kinds of writing, like recipes, poems, grocery lists, reports, news stories, or blogs. Students will learn the writing process with drafts and edits and redoing. Fluency is for 30 minutes and it's whole class, small groups, or oral repeated reading. This time is breaking up into 2 sections. The first section, 8 to 10 minutes, is teacher's instruction and modeling, and the rest of the time is specific activities for fluency for the whole class, small groups, or oral repeated. On specific timeline, there will be assessments for fluency as for each student as well. Comprehension is 30 minutes and it's whole class instruction time. The teacher teaches about specific literal pieces out loud to show an example of how to think through the process of comprehending a text. A graphic organizer could be used to map out the story. And I have an example right here of a story map with setting, characters, beginning, middle, and end. And depending on the grade, it may be totally different than this, but this was just an example. I got this off of Teachers Pay Teacher, and it was a free resource to find. The goal is to scaffold each student, like we talked earlier on. Word work is for 30 minutes and it's for the whole class. In kindergarten and first grade, the main goal is to learn letter sounds and then learn the sounds inside of words. As the students go through each grade, they will learn age-appropriate decoding skills for that grade. This falls in line with the phonics as words that I spoken earlier. And I kind of have the word cat decoded down there. Small group and differentiated reading instructions practice is for 60 minutes. The students are divided into groups, and 3 groups can rotate and see the teacher each day. Depending how big your class is, you may only see your kid every other day. This is kind of like rotation time that you could do in your classroom. It could be with a teacher, and then individual activities. The 5 block organization framework supports the science of reading, the Big Five, and they're scientifically proven to work. Outside of that, it is evident